Hello friends, welcome to the offlane tier list for patch 7.33c. What are the good offlaners in Dota right now? Let's get into it by looking at the bad ones first. So in the dogshit tier, we have Broodmother. So they changed two things about this hero recently that made her fall off completely. Number one, Insatiable Hunger no longer gives you flat damage. It gives you damage based on your base attack damage, which means her laning is a lot weaker. She was known before for having extremely strong laning. That is not the case anymore. And then B, they changed her to be a universal hero. And a lot of heroes really benefited from this because they already kind of wanted to build these all stat items that would benefit these universal heroes. Heroes like Wind Ranger building into an Atos. But you can't really build Atos on Brood. Echo Saber on Brood is kind of a grief. You really want to play around the summons and like enable the summons, so you go for auras, but they've nerfed that build. So Brood is just not really in a great place. And then, of course, being universal, they nerfed all of her stat gains because of that. Bristleback in 7.33, they changed this hero where if you take damage over the threshold damage in a single hit, like let's say Sven cleaves you for 2,000 damage because he crits, before you would just do one quill spray from that, but now you'll do like 10 quill sprays. So when they changed this, his win rate went up quite a bit, and so in a subsequent patch, a letter patch, they nerfed Warpath so that it does the same thing, but you need more stacks of it. This made his win rate plummet. And I also think that the carry meta has changed a little bit in the past month, where you have a lot of like Ursa, Slark, Monkey King, heroes that just devour Bristleback in lane. They're getting picked a lot right now. Razor, this hero's dog shit because the Aghanim Shard was really important for him. They added a internal cooldown to it, which, yes, the Bloodstone build was a bit of a meme. It wasn't actually that great, but the Aghanim Shard was great. Even in the non-Bloodstone builds, people would go for the Aghanim Shard as soon as humanly possible, and that's just not good anymore. But they did give him a little bit of a buff to the passive, so it's not completely dog shit at level 1, so maybe in a few letter patches, Razor will be quite fine. I also think like Juggernaut, Lifestealer, these heroes that Razor dumpsters in lane, that he's like a counter to, he doesn't really counter them, or sorry, they're not really picked up right now as like S tier carries. So it's just not that great of a pick. Okay, D tier, we have Dragon Knight. I will say at this point, like a lot of the popular offlaners right now are the ones that are best at building into the auras that are currently OP, which is Pipe mostly, Crimson Guard, a bit of Guardian Greaves. Dragon Knight doesn't build any of these items. He's a Blink Stunner, and on top of that, he's very much so picked because of the stun, and stuns got nerfed across the board. So I think DK is actually a decent hero. He's probably a better carry, better mid, mostly a carry in my opinion because he scales really well with the Black Dragon. But in the offlane, these Blink Stunners just aren't that strong, which is why a lot of them are in this tier. Dawnbreaker, she was not a good offlaner before. I think the Echo Saber Deso build is, or was the better offlane build that people were going for on her. But like I said, most offlaners are currently in the state where like they're OP because they're really good at building the auras and protecting their team, making their team immortal. Or they have some really overtuned, overpowered element to them because of the patch. Dawnbreaker didn't really get that. They just changed a little bit. They gave her some more healing on her passive, but it's not enough to make her like good again. Not in the offlane. Maybe it's like a carry or a 5 or something like that. Centaur, they nerfed his stun, and the stun is very important for him. I think he was like okay before, 7.33. He definitely was stronger at the start of 7.33 pre-nerf to the Vanguard because he is a Vanguard builder. I think the Ring of Health Rush was great for him, but now Ring of Health Rush, building the super early Vanguard is not as much of a thing. Now people are getting it later and kind of want heroes that can function without it. Centaur definitely needs it, and he gets eaten alive by a lot of these popular carries. And he really wants a Blink Dagger. So these Blink Dagger rushing heroes are just not that good. Sand King, speaking of Blink Dagger rushing heroes being not that good, the Aghanim Scepter is like hypothetically very cool on him, where it stuns in his Sandstorm. I wish he could go for that on the offlane. It's not OP enough to justify going for it over the aura items. I think Sand King probably still wants to build into auras. His laning is incredibly weak. He definitely feeds in the first like few minutes, and laning is super important right now in Dota. It's more important than it's ever been because it's so easy to snowball. It's so hard to come back when the enemy team has like extra Pavises and aura items like pipes and shit like that. It's just impossible to win once you fall behind. And Sand King's laning will make him struggle for sure. Abaddon, his stat gains were horrendous before, and they're even worse now because he's a universal hero. Gets owned by a lot of the popular carries in lane. Not a great aura builder. He wants to go like phase drums, which honestly, granted, drums are pretty good, but a lot of the supports are picking them up. It's, yeah, I don't know. Abaddon just doesn't feel that great. The builds on him don't feel very good, and he gets dumpstered in lane. Lycan, he definitely feels the creep damage to tower nerf. He's also a universal hero, which means they like mega nerfed his stat gains, especially his int. He's so fucking stupid now. And he's not a hero that really likes building into like all stat items. So he doesn't have that much damage. I've seen people go for like Echo Saber, Lycan, Echo Deso or something like that, but it feels weird to play this hero not around the summons because obviously he's so good at empowering them. But it kind of feels like if you want to make him work, that's the build that you would have to do. And Broodmother's in the same boat. It's just not that great. Mars, Blink Dagger into like BKB. This is the build on him that you kind of have to do to function in a game, and that's not good right now. Blink Dagger rushers are kind of terrible. You run at them, you blink in, you have no stats, they pipe their guy, then they survive, and then they turn the fight on you, and you feel like shit. His ult is a really long fucking cooldown too. It feels really awful. Speaking of long cooldown ults, this patch is very fast. It's a lot of running around and skirmishing and just fighting constantly. And unfortunately, Tidehunter's Aghanim Shard, while it is cool, it's not enough to like, oh, now we can fight on Tidehunter constantly. Like, he is still very limited by the fact that Ravage has such a long cooldown. Doom is very popular right now. Hard counters Tidehunter. Slark in lane is going to dumpster Tide. Like, pretty much all these heroes that I've listed here in the D tier are heroes that get countered by Monkey King, Slark, and Ursa. Slardar, they nerfed his bash stun duration pretty significantly when you consider the fact of like how many times he's bashing. They nerfed the stun on his Slithering Crush, which like already wasn't that long and now it feels like a mini stun. It's just bad, man. And it's a blink stunner. Like, all these blink stunners just don't feel very good right now because blink doesn't give you any stats. It doesn't do well against all the auras and mechs and shit like that, where you go in, you use your blink stun, they turn the fight on you, you feed once, all of a sudden you lose your wisdom runes, game is over. Feels really bad. Nature's Prophet actually asked Faith Beyond at the Major why this hero was so bad. And he said it's because whenever this hero has like a long teleport cooldown, he's bad. Whenever his teleport cooldown is short, he's good. And they nerfed the teleport cooldown pretty significantly. They did in a letter patch make it a little bit shorter, but it's still quite long. And so I would say he was dog shit tier until the letter patch where they made it a bit better. And now he's D tier, maybe even C tier, depending on if people figure out like a new build on him. But definitely just not the same hero he was in the last patch, and probably good riddance. I mean, he was OP. Okay, moving on to the C tier, we have Death Prophet. So first and foremost, I want to do a bit of a PSA here. In 7.33, the patch note said something along the lines of spirits from her ult now do more damage the closer you are to Death Prophet. That's how it was before. I had some confirmation from a Valve employee, you can probably guess who said, "Oh yeah, well, like, that was a mistake that was in there. You know, it was 1,000 patch notes shouldn't have been in there. That is how it worked." So she has not actually received any like hugely significant nerfs in the recent patches, and yet her win rate is kind of low. In fact, in a letter patch, they increased the AoE of her silence. They gave her a little bit more damage on her Q, and like these things are definitely significant. She might actually end up being B tier after that patch, but she's still not seeing that much play. I think the big reason for this is because she has a long cooldown ulti, which is not good because kills are so important right now, and people are just constantly fighting and looking for kills. And also, towers are not that important to get in Dota right now. And she's all about taking towers. That's like her entire purpose in the offlane. So I think for that reason, she went from being S tier to just kind of middle of the pack, like decent. But like I said, she might actually end up being B tier after this recent letter patch where they buffed some of her stuff. Timbersaw, this hero got changed to be universal, and they gave him an Aghanim Scepter. The Aghanim Scepter is really, really good, but it can be dispelled. If they fix that, he might actually be like S tier or at least A tier. So the fact that it can be dispelled makes it very bad, the Aghanim Scepter, even though it's very cool and makes you super tanky. But this hero is now a universal hero. I've seen people do Diffusal Blade Timber. I've seen Atos Timber. It all looks really bad. He's not a hero that really benefits from getting like extra attack damage from those stats like a lot of the other universal heroes. So this is one of those universal changes where it just doesn't benefit him that much, even though they nerfed his stat gains as a result of being universal. Necrophos. So probably the big thing about him, at least the coolest thing at 7.33, is that his Death Seeker from the Aghanim Shard now launches you as a projectile, which is cool. Like, he has mobility now. So I think he's honestly, like, I want to say he's honestly decent, but maybe I'm just coping as a Necrophos player. The biggest issue with Necro is Nullifier is extremely strong. People are going for this item like second item on even position 4 clinks, but a lot of carries are going second item, at least third item Nullifier, and this hard counters Necrophos. So feels bad for him. Alchemist, generally just like a good hero. They've nerfed him decently over the, past letter patches because he has been top pick, top ban in pretty much every tournament game and still sees a lot of play. So yeah, as an offlaner, it's still fine. Like, he's still a good stunner with his W, but he's not one of the best aura builders in the game. And I think there's a lot of like really good aura builders right now. If you're gonna go like Blink Dagger Rush, well, like, you're griefing anyway by doing that for the most part. Primal Beast, they changed a bunch of shit about this hero in 7.33. Like, they nerfed his stun durations. They made it so his ult pierces through spell immunity, but does, or I guess it's debuff immunity now. But he does less damage, among some other things. So because of these things, like, his win rate went down a little bit, but I still think he's fine. Like, he's really good with drum boots. He likes building pipe. He's good at building a Vanguard. So he's still all right, just not busted. And I think he does not so great against a lot of the popular carries. Enigma, I think ever since they made it so you can't eat range creeps, it has sucked quite a bit. He's long cooldown dependent, and heroes that are long cooldown dependent just generally aren't that good right now. But he's fine. Like, he's a good aura builder, and that's always going to be fine right now. So that's why he's in C tier. Night Stalker, in 7.33, they gave him a new Aghanim Scepter where you press Void on the ground, and it makes it nighttime in that little area, and then it also voids in that AoE on occasion. It's pretty cool. I remember seeing people go for this at the start of the patch, but it's not OP enough to justify picking the hero and then not having an aura builder in the offlane. I have tried to go for Pipe Night Stalker. I've tried to go for Crimson Night Stalker. It really feels like this is a hero that likes building Echo Saber Blink. He likes to jump backliners and kill them. And that's just not really what you want out of an offlaner right now. That's kind of what a mid laner does. Viper, in 7.33, they actually gave him some nice buffs. They gave him extra cast range on his ult, which is nice. And I think Viper actually does decently against a lot of the popular carries in lane. Although the one big issue with Viper is that, at least when I'm playing Viper, is that people kind of know to tri-lane him and kill him at level 1. And you can do that and then go through the portals now. And it's not like you have to commit anything to doing that to the Viper. So Necrophos is also a very similar hero like this, where these are like lane dominating heroes if they get an advantage. And if you kill them once, they completely fall off. And so I think a lot of these heroes, because of the twin gates that want to dominate lane, but really want a 2v2, like, these heroes can feel a bit weaker, despite Viper actually, like, in a vacuum, being pretty decent right now. Especially again in the carry matchups. But you kill him once and he just falls off. Marcy, the Aghanim Scepter is fucking busted, for sure. But I think this is a mid and mostly carry hero. I think carry Marcy is actually good. She's a hero who does right-click damage, and she's a universal hero, and she does well with a lot of the universal items, especially the Aghanim Scepter. Like, this gives you a ton of stats. So I think Marcy is good, but as a carry. But if you go for her in the offlane, like, maybe you can go for some Vanguard, Pipe, Aghanim Scepter. I know, I'm sure it could work. I'm just confident enough that the Aghanim Scepter is busted enough on Marcy that, yeah, sure, if you're a Marcy player, you have to play an offlane, it's probably going to be fine, because the Ags is insane. Elder Titan, I actually think this hero's best role is probably offlane. If you can get him in, like, a good matchup where his lane is not dog shit, the Aghanim Scepter running in there with, like, plus 400 damage from the Spirit is still incredible. He does so much damage. And he fights constantly because you're just using the Spirit, basically. But you have to be really good at Elder Titan, and you have to get through the laning stage, and laning is very important right now, which is another reason why Pangolier is C tier, is because his W got nerfed maybe a couple of times, and his Q got nerfed, the range on it at least. So you kind of want levels on this hero, which means essentially he's still the same mid that he was before, because you get levels, and so it doesn't matter that his early levels got nerfed. But in the off lane, you can definitely feel it. His ult obviously got nerfed in the sense that, like, you have 80% magic resist or whatever it is now instead of total spell immunity, but I don't think that's that significant because you're still stunning everything that's going near you. So a lot of the time you're protected just because of that. So I think Pango's still fine, but it feels worse as an offlaner because you lose the lane, you lose the game. Getting into the B tier, we have all the good heroes, essentially, I would say. Or the bad of the good heroes. I don't know how you want to put it. But Doom, so this hero is still very strong. There's a ton of different builds people are going for on him. There's Octarine Midas with, Vanguard first and disassembling that, and Mana Boots. There's a Boots of Travel build that you can go for. There's Greaves. People are going Crimson still, Pipe. There's a lot that you can do on this hero. I do think that it can struggle in lane, depending on what you're laning up against and what your fore position is. And definitely it is harder to play than a lot of the other aura offlaners. Like Underlord is really fucking easy to play, for example. And Doom, you actually have to press buttons. But with that being said, Doom farms quicker than all of these other heroes. And so as a result, you get more auras before the enemy team does. And that's often how you can win some free games. Doom is probably the best aura building offlaner in this tier, I would say. So Doom is amazing. Eventually, you go late game. You have way more net worth than the enemy team. You Doom their carry. They feel really bad. And then you win the game. You get an Aghanim Scepter. You can do multiple people. Bounty Hunter. Oh, Jesus. I mean, this hero is just incredibly busted. I think in the off lane, like if you're really snowballing, you can go for Vanguard still and then Deso, and you can scale and play like a carry. And you could still build like one aura item. I think, honestly, that's the play for if you're snowballing on these like aura heroes. Like I've seen Ace go for Octarine on Doom into the aura items after that. So you go for like one kind of carry / scaling item, and then you go for auras, or you go for auras and then you scale later on into the game. But I think that's where BH's place is at. And he honestly is just so strong in lane because you have a stun on your invis. There's not enough sentries around the map to deal with this hero. You snowball massively because of track. And in lane, you hit the carry, you Janata them off cooldown, and it's like it beats pretty much any carry in lane. It's quite nuts. The only thing with BH is that you have no way of farming creep waves. That's the worst thing about him, is that you can't farm creep waves. And so if you fall up behind, it can feel really bad. It's just that it's hard to fall behind on him because his laning is insane. Beastmaster. I don't think this hero is as OP as he was right at the start of the patch, particularly because like Vanguard has been nerfed, and so Doom and Beast and Underlord have all fallen off a little bit. They're still quite decent. But Beastmaster, he farms Ancient stacks. I don't know what in Gabe's name they were thinking, making the mana cost on his axes 50. Like, come on, that's just insane. There's 2 Ancients now that you can stack. I've been stacking both of them, one with the boar, one with my hero, or having my 4 position go over and stack those for me. And the Aghanim Scepter on Beastmaster is incredibly good. It makes you a magic damage Beastmaster. So there are multiple builds you can do. You can still go for the Dom and crush towers, or you can take over the map, or you can go for the Aghanim Scepter and play as like that late game Beastmaster. So Beast is quite good. I might even be underrating Doom and Beast, but you'll see why I have them here when you see the A and S tier heroes who are just incredibly broken. So Visage, great aura builder. Drum Boots, this hero really likes that. You build into Pipe, you build into Crimson is perfectly fine on Visage, although I'd say like probably you want to go for like Solar Crest. The big thing with Visage is that he is a universal hero now, which means that you go for a bunch of stat items in lane, and this hero does damage. I can't believe I'm saying it. Like, any hero that has this long attack range, like Techies, for example, should not be able to have such a high base damage. It's insane. But Visage, of course, you go for a bunch of branches and circlets, and all of a sudden you're hitting for like 60 or something like that. It's so easy to last hit. It's so easy to harass, especially with Soul Assumption being so low mana cost in the early levels. Brewmaster, I think this hero is phenomenal. The Aghanim Scepter is great, getting the little pandaling to fight for you permanently, especially in this meta where there's like Pipes, Crimsons, Pavises, all of this shit that can be purged. You have the little wind panda just running around with you and purging things. It's like you can kill anyone. You throw up one hero in a fight. There's some Medusa on the enemy team that you just can't kill. Throw her up in the fight. No big deal. Aghanim Shard, amazing on this hero. Gives you extra time on the brew split, which obviously is Brew's most important thing, is the ult. So Brew is quite strong, in my opinion. Underlord, easiest aura builder in the game. Like, if you don't know how to play offlane and you want to run into the offlane and have a good game, you literally just press Q on every single wave. You ult for wisdom runes. You ult for getting your carry to a fight. You know, you show up to a fight and your carry's not there. You ult them in. It's like, it's so brainless. It's so insanely brainless. You make the enemy carry do no damage. You dumpster lanes because you get plus damage from killing all the creeps in lane. It's too easy. It's way too easy. Axe, great Vanguard builder. Vanguard, Crimson, Pipe, like all of these items I think are actually quite good on Axe. He's one of the few like blink initiating heroes that can go for the blink. And like, you go for Vanguard, you go for blink, and you kind of farm quick enough and you have enough of a presence on the map with those items that you can like get to the pipe. You can get to the Crimson after that. Blade Mail is still perfectly fine depending on what you're up against. And I think Blade Mail heroes are pretty strong right now. The item's been buffed quite a few times. But Axe is really strong. Like, basically, this is one of those heroes that I mentioned earlier where they fundamentally changed some of the heroes in Dota. Like Axe, for example, they made it so the spin, you have to get hit 4 times rather than having it being a percentage chance. Since they did that, he became broken. Like, that is just fundamentally strong on him. You can really feel it in game. Earth Spirit. Maybe this hero is not actually on the same tier as... Earth Spirit's pretty insane. Like, he's... one of the popular builds in the offlane is Vanguard, Mana Boots into Octarine Rush, and Earth Spirit with an Octarine is just fucking crazy. I think I put this hero in this list, like, when I saw this in a pro game, and I think the guy lost while playing it, but it looked just absolutely bonkers when he had the Octarine core, and he got it so early, and the build-up was just nuts. But like, the big thing for why Earth Spirit I think now can be played in the core position is that his Q does more damage to creeps, which means you can use it to secure range creeps at level 1. It does like 150 damage for a relatively low mana cost nuke. Like, that is so good for pushing the wave and securing range creeps on a hero that could not do that before. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to the A tier. These are the really broken heroes, guys. Because you might have been wondering, Jenkins, why would you put Doom and Earth Spirit on the same tier? Clearly, there is a power differential between these heroes. And yes, I do agree. That is correct. But there's also a huge difference between the A and B tier heroes. The A tier heroes are fucking bonkers right now. So let's get into why. So Magnus, let's just get cut right to the chase here. Harpoon Skewer is an insane combo. It feels like every Magnus is collapse at TI 10. It is so easy to pull off. And also, this hero is a universal hero, which means when you go Treads, Echo Saber, BKB, Vanguard, not only are you unkillable, but you do a fuckload of damage with Empower. It's just nuts. Magnus is not okay. Legion Commander. So the significant thing that they changed about her is that her Q and her W were swapped in terms of what they do. So her W now gives you move speed, and her Q now gives you attack speed, and it can be cast during duel. So there's no longer that you hear the horn and then you blink out because you know the Legion Commander is coming for you. She is dueling first and then casting the Q on you. And because dual cast range was increased, it means that she can go Blade Mail first, which means she actually has kill threat without a Blink Dagger, which means she has farming capabilities because of how Blade Mail has the passive component to it, where you return a little bit of extra damage. She is very strong right now. Winter Wyvern. This hero is just one of the best universal offlaners in the game. If you go for 2 crowns into Atos, Treads, like, this hero has like 100 damage at 3 minutes into the game. It is impossible to lane against, and she's very strong against a lot of the popular carries right now, not only in lane, but in game. Because in lane, she's kiting them, she's hitting them from far away, she's a ranged hero, and in game, Ursa, Slark, Monkey King, Sven, these very strong carries, she can kite them, she can protect her teammates from these heroes, and she can turn these heroes against their own teammates. Wyvern is nuts. Wind Ranger, another amazing Atos builder. She will destroy any of these carries in lane. Like all the ones I just mentioned, Wind Ranger will absolutely kite. They can't kill her through her evasion. Aghanim Scepter is amazing on her, and any universal hero that really wants to build into the Ags because it's strong is going to be good right now, because Ags obviously gives you a lot of stats. Atos Gleipnir build on Wind Ranger is like, you can't get armor to deal with it. You can't get magic resistance or BKB to deal with it because she does both types of damage. She's very annoying and probably the best hero in Dota currently, and that's why she's an A-tier offlaner despite not being her best role. Darkseer, this is the best aura builder in Dota, hands down. Like, he is just so good at empowering a super carry. It feels like he makes your team fucking immortal right now. So there's a lot of Darkseer players out there that are very excited to play this hero. I also think Darkseer makes a lot of the melee fours that are strong way stronger. Heroes like Bounty Hunter, Earth Spirit, Spirit Breaker, these are all very popular heroes and very strong, and he turns them into 4 positions, which is amazing. Venomancer, another universal hero. His ult is quite good, I would say. Like, basically all the reworks that they've done to Veno, he definitely benefits from. Like, his ult feels like a guaranteed kill. Right now, you just press it on somebody, they die. Through BKB, the hero with wards is very annoying at scouting and controlling a map that is now very huge, but also he's a universal hero. So he builds stats, and Veno is actually good at laning and has damage, and he never had that capability before. I remember one patch they increased his base damage by like 3, and then his win rate fucking skyrocketed because this hero's never been strong in the early levels. Now he is, because he is a universal hero. Okay, moving on to the S tier. Let's just get right into it because these ones are insane. Batrider. Oh god, where to begin with this hero? Good lord. He doesn't get countered anymore. You slark him, he just goes a bunch of stats and he out right clicks you, and he doesn't even skill Napalm. There's no point in taking Napalm off because Firefly does so much damage on its own, you don't need Napalm. And his W is now a 5-second slow at level 1. And it does 5 ticks or whatever, instead of like 2 ticks that it used to do. So if you do have Napalm, it does way more damage with just 1 point. This hero is probably the best Vanguard mana boots into Octarine builder in the game. It makes it so that his lasso is on like a 40-second cooldown when you have an Octarine core. 40 seconds. You could just guaranteed kill somebody every 40 seconds. People on Bat are going in the off lane. They're going for the Octarine into the old build, which is just Blink Dagger, Force Staff. You just blink in, ult somebody, force out, kill them, do it again in 40 seconds. Like, it's impossible to play against in the late game, and there are no counters to him anymore because he's universal, so you have a ton of damage in the lane, and then he doesn't really care about using Napalm anymore, and that is how you countered him, was by picking heroes that could dispel Napalm. According to Monkeys Forever, the best heroes against Bat in lane now, it's like Faceless Void Anti-Mage, and you could still out-CS those heroes, and they didn't really hard counter Bat that badly before. Like, those were some of his better counter matchups. So if those are the heroes that counter him, Bat's looking good. Spirit Breaker. Oh boy. This might be the second best hero in Dota currently. They just buffed him across the board. They reduced the mana costs on his charge. I think they gave him a little bit more move speed. They increased the magic resistance on planar pocket from like 25 to like 75 or something ridiculous like that. So his Aghanim Shard is insane. Once you have phase boots, drums, Shadow Blade, you legit are... This hero does so much damage with just charge and on such a low cooldown. It is crazy. I also think a big reason that Spirit Breaker is super strong right now is because Invis heroes are very powerful. Bounty Hunter, Clinks, these are super popular heroes. Wind Ranger even becomes an Invis hero. At least she becomes a very mobile, hard to catch hero. Spirit Breaker loves playing into these heroes and catching them. Like, he's the king of catching people out across the map. And it feels like these heroes are so fucking hard to catch right now. So Spirit Breaker is absolutely god tier and one of the easiest heroes in the game. So I would highly recommend, if you do not know how to play off lane, pick this guy. This is some free MMR, and it probably will be for at least, probably until after the major. Maybe a little bit longer, depending on how long Valve takes to patch. Anyway, that's it for this video. I'll move out of the way so you can see the whole list. Sorry, my mic's covering the Nature's Prophet there, but you can still see him there. That's it, guys. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you. I'll see you later, and I'll see you in the next one.